Hey guys, and happy Wednesday, April 1st. Miss Rook here. Like always, I'm going to go over the agenda and the learning target for today's lesson. So on the agenda, the things we're going to cover, I'm going to recap chapter 17 of Lyddie. That's the last chapter that we read together. So I want to recap it and kind of remind you of what was happening. Then we're going to read chapter 18 of Lyddie together. Your assignment will be on Flipgrid. You need to do an emoji book talk, and I'll explain what that looks like in a little bit. And then at the very end, you need to go back to EDSB, and there are chapter 18 questions for you to answer on EDSB. Okay, so our learning target for today is I can summarize a chapter of a book by choosing emojis to represent the chapter and give reasons to support my choices. So basically your whole goal today is to be able to summarize chapter 18, and the way you're showing me that you can do that is by choosing emojis to represent what happened in that chapter. You also are going to give me reasons to support why you chose those emojis, and you're going to give evidence for that as well. All of that will be done on Flipgrid. Okay, so let me go ahead and recap chapter 17 first. Okay, so chapter 17 recap. What happened in that chapter? So we remember Lyddie was sick. She got a fever, and back in this time it was a big deal if you got a fever because there weren't exactly doctors, and there was not medicine to recover from that. So in chapter 17, Lyddie is recovering. She's in the boarding house. Diana and Bridget come to check on her to see how she is doing. Remember, Diana is the girl she works with. Bridget is the new girl. She's worried about going back to work because she stomped Mr. Marsden's foot before she left last. So she got a little angry with how close he was coming to her. She decided to stomp his foot, and she's worried that she's not really going to have a job to go back to. Her little sister, Rachel, remember, is living with her. Uncle Judah just dropped her off. Rachel wants to be a doffer. She wants to get a job. Now, a doffer was the girls that put thread back on the shuttles. So it was something simple that a little girl could do. So Lyddie asked Mrs. Bedloe to help get her a job at the corporation. Lyddie ends up going back to work, and when she does, Mr. Marsden kind of ignores her and pretends like he doesn't know what actually happened. And at the end of the chapter, Rachel has a bad cough. Lyddie thinks that she needs to send her away so that she doesn't get any worse. She thinks about sending her to Trifina. She doesn't really know what she's going to do. And then at the end of the chapter, a visitor comes to see Lyddie, but we don't yet know who that is. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear all of that. I am going to go ahead and move on to chapter 18. So we're going to go to chapter 18, and here we are. Okay, so Charlie at Last is the title of this chapter. So I'm going to read it. You can follow along with me as I have the chapter on the screen. I'm going to just zoom in just a little bit so we can see that a little bit better. Okay, I'll have my mouse going over some of the words, but you really need to be paying attention so that you can follow along with the text. Okay, so here we go. She hardly knew him. He was not so much taller, but bigger somehow, foreign. He wore homespun, but it was well tailored to his body. His brown hair was combed neatly against his head, and a carpet bag hung from his right hand. "Sister," he said quietly, and the voice was one she had never heard before and would not have known for his. "Sister," he repeated, his voice cracking on the words. "It's me, Charles." "Yes," she said, "Charles. So, you come." He smiled then. She looked in vain for the funny, serious little boy she knew. He wasn't 13 yet. How could he have discarded that little child so quickly? He glanced around the crowded room. All the staring faces quickly dived back into their sewing or knitting or conversation. "I took the railroad car," he said in quiet pride, "the stage into New Hampshire, to Concord, and then all the rest of the way by train." Then he grinned like a child, but not the child she remembered. Not quite. She didn't know what to say. She cared nothing for railroads, those dangerous, dirty things. It was the farm she ached to know about. "Well," she said at last, "you must be tired, eh?" She cast about the parlor for 2 free chairs. At her glance 3 girls rose and abandoned theirs in the far corner of the room beyond the dining tables. She thanked them and led them over. It was she who felt the need to sit. Well, she said, arranging her apron on her lap. Well, then. It was as much of a question as she could manage. I got good news, Lyddie, he said, a little of the boy she knew creeping into his voice. Her heart rose. The Finneys have taken me on as full apprentice. Eh? More than that, truly. They treat me like their own. They don't have no child but me. You got a family, she said faintly. You'll always be my sister, Lyddie. I don't forget that. It's just... He put the carpet bag on the floor and laid his cap carefully on top. His hands were big now, too large for his body. Finally, he looked up at her. It's just, I don't have to worry every morning when I get up and every night when I lie abed. I just do my work, and every day, 3 times, the food is there. When the work is slack, I go to school. It's a good life they give me, Lyddie. She wanted to scream out at him, remind him how hard she had worked for him, how hard she had tried, but she only said softly, I wanted to do for you, Charlie. I tried. Oh, Lyddie, I know, he said, leaning toward her. I know. But it weren't fair to you. You only a girl, trying to be father and mother and sister to us all. It were too much. This'll be best for you too, eh? Don't you see? No, she wanted to howl. No. What will be the use of me then? But she kept her lips pressed together against such a cry. At last she said, There's Rachel. He smiled again, his grown-up smile that turned him into a stranger. I have good news there, too. Mrs. Finney asked me to bring Rachel back. She craves a daughter as well. And she'll be so good to her, you'll see. She even sent a dress. She made it herself for Rachel to wear on the train, with a bonnet even. His eyes went to the carpet bag beside the chair. She's never had a proper ma, Rachel. She has me. Oh, Charlie, I ain't perfect, but I do my best. Can't you see? I done my best for you. She's all I got left now. How can I let her go? But even as she stormed within herself, she knew she had no choice. Like the rusty blade through her heart, she felt it. If she stays here with me, she'll die. If I cling to her, I will be her death. Okay, I want to stop there just for a second. Okay, so I'm going to put a little star there so I remember where we were. And I want you to think about, what does this sentence mean here? Okay, I'm going to underline it for you. If I cling to her, I will be her death. I'll circle it. So if I cling to her, I will be her death. What does she mean by this? If I cling to her, I will be her death. Well, if we think about the word cling, when something is clinging to something else, it's stuck to it. So she doesn't literally mean that she's stuck to Rachel. She just means if I hold on to Rachel, if I keep her here with me, I will be her death. Meaning if Rachel stays here, she has that bad cough, that's going to be the cause of her death if Lyddie is selfish to cling to her. Okay? All right, let's keep going. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that. Okay, it says that she heard her own voice, calm as morning after a storm. No, quiet as death, say, when will you be leaving? The train leaves Lowell at 5 minutes after 7 of the morning. I'll come to fetch her at 6:30. I'll have her ready before I go to work. She stood. There was nothing more to be said. He stood too, cap in hand, wanting, she knew, to say more, but not knowing quite how. She waited. About the farm, he began. The farm. A few minutes before, she had thought it was all she cared about. Now it had ceased to matter. Uncle Judah's bound and determined to sell. Lyddie nodded. Well, she said, so be it. He grinned wryly. For a man who says the Lord is set to end the whole creation at any minute, he's got a powerful concern for the vain things of this world. She realized he was trying to be funny, so she attempted a smile. But I near forgot. He reached into an inside pocket and took out a sealed letter. Lyddie stared at it. He ain't sending me money? Who? Uncle. Oh, no, not him. He says anything from the sale is rightly his, for taking care of Ma and the babies all this time. No, this here is a letter. He handed it to her, studying her face the while. From Luke. Luke who? Lyddie, our friend Luke, our neighbor, Luke Stevens. He seemed shocked. He couldn't know she was 2 lifetimes away from the day Luke had driven them to the village, and at least 1 lifetime from the day the Quaker boy had stood on the doorstep of number 5 in his peculiar disguise. She tucked the letter in her apron pocket. Thank you, she said. And goodbye, I reckon. I'll not be here in the morning when you come. It'll be all right, Lyddie. It'll be best for us all, eh? His voice was anxious. It'll work out best for you as well. You forgot your bag, she said. No, that's for Rachel. He picked it up and handed it to her. He put out his hand as if to shake hers, but hers were tightly wrapped around the handle of the bag. She nodded instead. The next she saw him, he would be taller than she, Lyddie thought, if there was a next time. She led him to the door. Goodbye, she mouthed the words. She couldn't have spoken them aloud if she'd dared. She climbed the stairs like an old decrepit woman, clinging to the banister and pulling herself up step by step. Rachel was fast asleep. She would not wake her. In the candlelight, she studied the lovely little face, too thin, too pale, the skin nearly transparent. Lyddie brushed back a curl that had escaped its plait and smoothed it against Rachel's cheek. Any minute she would start to cough, her little body racked, the bed shaking. Mrs. Finney would keep her safe. She could go to school. She would have a good life, a real mother. And she will forget me, plain, rough, miserly Lyddie, who only bought her ribbons because she was shamed to it. Will she ever know how much I loved her? How I would have gladly laid down my life and died for her? How, oh Lord, I'm dying this very minute for her? She took out the dress. It was a lovely sprigged muslin. It looked too big for Rachel's tiny frame, but the child would grow into it. She would lengthen and fatten and turn once again into a stranger. Lyddie's tears were soaking the dress. She wiped her face on her own apron skirt, then laid out the new garments, the frilly little bonnet with ribbons and lace, a petticoat fit for a wedding. A length of pink ribbon was woven in and out all around the top of the hem, waisted, pure waist where no one would ever see it, except Rachel. She packed the bag. It took less than a minute. Rachel had so little. She remembered the primer and then decided to keep it. Rachel would have a new one, a better one now. She took the book of verses off the nightstand and shut it in the bag, then took it out again. She got her box of writing materials, dipped her pen in the ink, and wrote in painful, careful script on the flyleaf, for Rachel Worthen, from her sister Lydia Worthen, June 24th, 1846, wiping her face carefully on her apron as she wrote, so as not to blot the page. She lay awake most of the night listening to Rachel cough, the sound rasping and sawing through her own body. But the pain of it was her salvation. She knew if she had ever doubted before, she was absolutely certain that Rachel must leave Lowell. When the first bell rang, instead of waking Rachel as usual, she waited until she herself was dressed and ready to go. Then she shook her gently. Rachel awoke at once, alarmed. I'm late! Why did you let me sleep? You got a treat today, Rachie. Charlie's come to fetch you. Charlie? My brother Charlie? She was as excited as if she could really remember him. Lyddie brushed away a cobweb of envy. He's come to take you for a visit. He wants me to visit him? She was plainly thrilled, but then she caught something in Lyddie's face. You coming too, ain't you, Lyddie? No, not me. I gotta work, eh? The child's face darkened. I'll come later. She stretched out her hand. Here, up you go. You gotta get ready. Rachel took Lyddie's hand and pulled herself upright, then threw back the covers. The child always slept under a quilt, even in the terrible summer heat. How long will I be gone, Lyddie? I don't rightly know. Me and Charlie, we both think you should stay a while. Make sure you get rid of that silly cough, eh? The factory's too hot in summer anyways. Lots of the girls take off come July. Will you take off, Lyddie? She was standing in her little night shift, scratching one leg with the bare toes of the other. I just might. Who knows, eh? Lyddie wrung out the cloth over the basin and handed it to Rachel to wash. Come with me now, Lyddie. Over on the other bed is a new dress for you to put on. You got to dress fancy for riding on a train. A railroad train? Luckiest girl I know. New dress and bonnet, train ride, holiday with a handsome man. She took the cloth from Rachel's hand, tipped up the child's chin, and began to wash her upturned face. Now you learn your letters better so you can write me all about that train ride. The bell began to ring. She turned swiftly, wringing the cloth out over the basin, her face to the wall, lest she betray herself. He'll be here to fetch you in an hour or so, she said brightly. So get yourself dressed and go down and ask Mrs. Bedloe to give you an extra big breakfast. She turned only long enough to give Rachel a light kiss on the cheek and then hurried out the door. Come soon, Lyddie. Rachel's voice followed her down the stairs. I'll miss you. Be a good girl for Charlie, she called back and rushed on down the stairs with a great clatter to erase any more sounds, any more doubts. Rachel had been gone nearly a week when she found the letter with her name written on it in small, neat handwriting. She had stuffed it into her trunk some days before and couldn't remember at first where it had come from. She unsealed it curiously. Dear Lyddie Worthen, doubtless thy Charlie has told thee about thy farm. Although our father pled on thy behalf, thy uncle could not be moved. Thus our father put down the purchase price himself, as he has 4 sons and not enough land for us all. I have spoken with thy Charlie. He has urged me to put aside my fears and speak my heart plain, which is that I long to earn from our father the deed to thy farm. Yet thy land would be barren without thee. May I dare ask thee to return, not as sister, but as wife? Forgive these bold words, but I know not how to fashion pretty phases fit for such as thee. In all respect, thy friend, Luke Stevens. What had Charlie said to the man to make him dare write such a letter? Do they think they can buy me? Do they think I will sell myself for that land? That land I have no one to take to anymore? I have nothing left but me, Lyddie Worthen. Do they think I will sell her? I will not be a slave, nor will I be his freight, some homeless fugitive that Luke Stevens must bend down his lofty Quaker soul to rescue. She tore the letter into tiny bits and stuffed every shred of it into Mrs. Bedloe's iron cook stove, and then, to her own amazement, burst into tears. Okay, so pretty interesting here. I'm going to just make a little note here. I want you to think about, what does she mean when she says, I will not be a slave? They're not asking her to be a slave here, but the fact that Luke Stevens wants her to return because he wants the land, she's thinking that this means that I'm going to be treated like a slave, like they own me. So just kind of put yourself in her footsteps here. Now that, she's gotten this letter, she's maybe changing her attitude towards Luke Stevens. Pretty interesting stuff here. Okay, so now that we have finished chapter 18, your job is going to be to make an emoji book talk. Okay, so you're going to go and you're going to get into Flipgrid. Okay, so that could be you copying in flipgrid.com/rook, whatever period you have me, or going through Edsby and clicking the link on Edsby. You want to put your lunch ID in there. So let me go ahead and put my lunch, well, it's not my lunch ID, but it's my code to get into Flipgrid. So once you put that in, you're going to see your page. Okay, here are all your topics. You've already done the say hello and the all about me on Monday. The very next one is the 3 emojis book talk. That's the one that you want to click. Okay, I've included the audio of chapter 18, what I just read to you. I've included that right here. So if you ever need to go back and listen to it, do that. Okay. The PDF of the book is also on Edsby. So what I literally just read to you, that is also on Edsby that you can go and reread. So here's what you need to do. What 3 emojis would best represent chapter 18 in Lyddie, and why? I want you to cite 2 pieces of text evidence with page numbers from the book to explain your answer. Your video should be 1 to 3 minutes long, and make sure that you also speak clearly and explain your reasons why you chose the emojis that you did. You can use the Emojipedia link to search for appropriate emojis, okay? So your job is to summarize chapter 18 in 3 emojis. So again, you don't have to show your face. You can do the whiteboard or the blackboard mode. And you can put your 3 emojis on there, okay? And then you can write why you chose that. Why did you choose this emoji? What does it have to do with the chapter, okay? Remember, if you're summarizing, then it should not be random little moments in the chapter, okay? Summarizing means that you're picking the main points, okay? So I'm going to write that on here. You want to make sure that you're picking the main points when you're choosing an emoji, okay? Summary gives me the main points of what that chapter was about. Now, if you're having trouble figuring out what emoji to use, that's what this link right here is for, okay? So I'm going to click on Emojipedia. It's going to open up in a new website, and it can just kind of show you what it is, okay? So if you search Emojipedia for, like, let's say I want something to describe love, okay? So I would search love, and what comes back are all of the different emojis that represent love, okay? And they have a description of it, all right? It tells you what it would be good to use for. All right, you have hearts, you have the smiling face with hearts, there's a broken heart, a pink hibiscus flower, a rose. So there's all those different ones that you can choose from. So if you're having a difficult time thinking of what to use, Emojipedia is a good place to go, okay? So 3 emojis, why did you choose them? You also need to tell me 2 pieces of text evidence. That means you need to say, because on page 143 it says this, okay? Because this happened in the chapter. You need to give me your reasons why. When you're ready to make your video, you want to click the green plus. We should know that by now. This will be your third one. It's moderated. That means that I am checking them before I put them live for everybody to see them. Again, if you do not want to show your face, use the whiteboard option. Put your emojis on the whiteboard and then talk me through why you chose them. Okay, I should still be able to hear your voice in the background if you don't show your face. Okay, so when you're ready, you need to click on that for your emoji book talk, okay? And then that is not it. Let me clear that main points away here. So after you do your emoji book talk, you want to go back to EDSB, okay? Let me go, let's see, I don't have EDSB open here. So let me open up EDSB. Once you log in, it's going to be on the main class page, okay? Oh, and I know SB has been having issues, but let's say I'm going to go to third period, okay? And right on your main class page, I'm going to be putting your assignment for chapter 18. It's the chapter 18 questions. You'll see a link here to do it. And it's 8 questions. It's not a lot. It should not take you very long, just to make sure that you understood what happened in chapter 18, okay? So remember your 2 things. You're on Flipgrid. You're doing the 3 emojis book talk, okay? And then you are on EDSB and you're doing those questions that are on the main page of the class, okay? So that is it for Wednesday, okay? You have questions, always message me. I'm trying to get back as quickly as possible throughout the day, but I am here for you if you need it, okay? All right, I look forward to watching your emoji book talks. Bye-bye.